What is going on in Sudan? This is the first time I'm going off script. I have no script in front of me. I'm just going to talk by all the information that I've gotten online, from people's TikTok, from people's YouTube, and I'm just going to talk about it. So, allegedly, whatever I say is allegedly. People dying in Sudan. Why is it not making noise the way Gaza is making noise? Trust me, I'm in favor of the way Gaza is making noise, but I want Sudan to make louder noise. Why is it that the pain of Africa is always neglected? The black man's cry is always seen as less painful. Oh no, they can take it. Women are being raped. Resources are being trafficked out of the country. Young boys are being forced to be in the military. Thousands, millions of people displaced from their homes. People are dying of hunger. And yet, we Africans are silent. No, we're not silent. We're just worried about things that we shouldn't worry about. I see a lot of Nigerians coming up. Oh, he was a Christian man. Oh, I see a lot. Oh, no, help this. Fine, that is good. But what about our own? When I look at the people of Sudan, they look like me. Why was it not flooded in my TikTok or on my YouTube or everywhere? People are dying. Why is it that the Ghanaian government didn't give food to Sudan, but rather aid was sent elsewhere? Does it mean even us, we don't realize that we also are neglecting ourselves? The way in which the world is going, if we as Africans cannot even unite under our black skin, then we have a problem. If we cannot see each other's pains and feel bad about it, then yes, we have a problem. We're shouting about people in South Africa, oh, there's xenophobia because they're turning us away and keeping white people in there. Then we go and look at another person's crisis and we shout about it. Whereas the children of Sudan and the children of Congo are crying and we're not giving them a voice. Why are we not supporting the boycott of the UAE? Or even the boycott of Elon Musk? His company is there in Congo. We enjoy all these things. I see you, vacations in the UAE. Whereas the children of Sudan are crying. Their wealth is being trafficked to the UAE. Have we as black people forgotten our own pain? Does the voice of a black man not pierce your own heart? A black baby crying of hunger, doesn't it move you to tears? Oh no, he's not just white enough. Even for us black people. And I'm not blaming anybody, I'm blaming myself too. Because why didn't I research more about this? Why didn't I investigate more about this? Why didn't I talk about this in the beginning? Why am I hearing of it now? We Africans have to do more if we want to move forward. Now, I just want us to have a little bit of history because I feel like the West is really diabolic. And whatever, I think the whole problem of planet Earth has come because of the destabilization of the Arab war. You may look at it and say no, you may debate about it, but the destabilization of the Arab war has caused so much pain to the whole world, especially to the Arab war. But nextly, in Africa, if you don't know, Northern Africa practically call themselves Arabs. They are part of the Arab war. And if you look at the proximity between these two continents, they easily do business and movement between themselves. So it means whatever goes on in the Arab war, it's going to affect Africa tremendously. Who would have known that terrorism would be in Nigeria? Who would have known that Burkina Faso would be fighting terrorism? Niger, Mali. When we were growing up, that wasn't a thing. But because the West funded, and but if you look at the origin of all these terrorist groups, I'll play you a clip where Hillary Clinton is admitting they funded all these groups. They go around, pick a little group, destabilize this group, send them to go and cause a regime change, and then abandon the group with weapons and everything. And that's how the breed of terrorism starts. Humans have a brain because we all have our ideology. We all believe in something. It might be religious, not be religious, but we all have a belief. Our beliefs might not be transmitted into politics. What I want to say is, I see nothing wrong with a country calling themselves a Christian country, a Catholic country, a Protestant country. Also, I see nothing wrong with a country calling themselves a Muslim country, an Islamic country. I see nothing wrong with that. If a group of people, everybody in that country has said, okay, this is what name this Islamic Republic of this, fine and good. If they say, oh, we want to name this Catholic Republic of this, fine and good. But when I go back into history, I see that any country which tries to have an Islamic mindset, the West is always trying to destroy that country. I don't know why. The beauty about the way God created us, with different skin tones, different ideologies, different cultures, different religion, just to worship him. It's the beauty of his creation. Okay, let me stop going round and round. We're going to watch a video where an American is saying 7 wars in 5 years. Well, that backfired because they actually didn't do 7 wars in 5 years.
Right after 9/11, about 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you gotta come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, No. He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." I said, "Is it classified?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, don't show it to me." And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, "You remember that?" He said, "Sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't show it to you."
I'm sorry, what did you say his name was?
I'm not going to give you his name.
So go through the countries again.
Well, starting with Iraq, then Syria and Lebanon, then Libya, then Somalia and Sudan, and then back to Iran. So when you look at Iran, you say, is it a replay? It's not exactly a replay, but here's the truth.
Okay, this was taken in, I think, after 9/11. 9/11 was in 2021. You see the list of those countries. And the person saying this, I think he made that in 2013. That's when the interview took place. So almost 12 years after, and we still know one of those countries on that list, America is still trying to fight that country, Iran. But what you don't know is those 7 countries include African countries. Libya was taken down, the destabilization of Libya, causing a whole lot of havoc in the Sahel region. The Somalia been bombed at will. If you don't know, when they feel like, oh no, let's test this, they drop a bomb in Somalia. Sudan, regime change. What is wrong with Sudan being an Islamic republic? There was a secession in Sudan where North and South divided. The Christians wanted to go their way, the Muslim state. It was good. They said they had a dictator who welcomed terrorists. I don't know, isn't that a sovereign country's right to welcome whoever they want and protect them? And if you want to take that person, then you come and negotiate with that sovereign country. Isn't that how diplomacy is supposed to be? That's the way I've seen the West practice with China. That's the way the West practice with Russia. When they have their prisoners of war, they go in the form of an exchange. But this was not the case with Sudan. So I'm going to read from a website and you will see what I'm reading. So it actually says, August 1993, the United States Department labeled Sudan a state sponsor of terrorism, alleging it harbored local and international terrorists, including Osama bin Laden. But in recent years, Sudan has signaled a willingness to combat terrorism. So you label Sudan and put sanctions on them as usual, state sponsor terrorism country. And they were willing to work with you to show that no, they don't have war terrorists. Tell me which person is, like, I know when people are guilty, they hide the fact. I haven't investigated to know if bin Laden was actually in Sudan. There's a picture that I see online. And I'm still going to have my doubts because from everything I've seen, the propaganda that the West has always pushed out, you will see that there's always little to no truth in what they say. They wanted the regime change. Sudan was an Islamic republic. Sanctions were put on Sudan back in 1993 because they harbored bin Laden. They have a whole lot of things. But then it says in this report that Sudan was willing to work to prove that no, they are not a state-sponsored terrorist country. Why didn't you work with Sudan? The arrogance of the West to minimize some people, to minimize some countries is disgusting to me. I will say it over and over. This is a sovereign country. As we know, Qatar had Hamas in their region and they were bombed. And it's funny because Hamas was there under the request of America, but still they were bombed. So now you see how it's so difficult for someone like me, a critical thinker, someone who just wants to understand what is going on, to actually believe some of the things that the West has been putting on in the past. Especially with a statement that someone made saying that, oh, they had plans. There's a whole plan to take away this country after 9/11. So Sudan became a part of this just because they harbored Saddam Osama bin Laden. For that sole reason, they needed to be taken out. Wow. If that's the case, I think we Africans should, maybe when we get power, we would, I don't condone violence in any form, but when you see the kind of violence that the West has put out in all these other countries, you tend to wonder, what's going on? Why are they behaving in this way? I just want us to go a little bit back in history before we go and see Sudan for what it is. From sanctions to being bombed as, oh no, you're sponsoring terrorism. But then I'm like, no, I want to prove myself I'm not sponsoring terrorism. To a regime change. As usual, America wants a regime change. They do that either by invading the country or by using a minority group in that country to change your leader. My fellow Africans, the day the West or any company associated, affiliated with the West and all its members comes to you and say, oh no, because people don't like your president, take him away. Just know that that's the day your president wants to be good for you. And the best thing is to let your president be. If you want a regime change in your country, do it the African way. Don't let another person sponsor a regime change in your country, because they have no they're there what is beneath the earth. So you can bomb all your buildings. It's none of their business. They want what is underneath your soil. In Sudan's case, gold. And in Sudan's case, access to the Nile. Sudan has a very large border with the Nile. The Nile is where most of the trades, the shipping boats, they go through the Nile to the Middle East and to other parts of the world. So just having that access to that water, it's already putting Sudan in a geographical stable situation where a port can be made, they can monitor the ships because that is their water. I guess some people do not want them monitoring their water. How can they? It's your water, but it's ours. So let's look at this report again. It says, despite increasing cooperation by Sudan, the United States Department continues to formally design it as a state sponsor of terrorism. The State Department first labeled Sudan a state sponsor of terrorism on August 12, 1993. Since then, the United States has accused Sudan of harboring members of Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Abdul Nadir organization, like a whole bunch of organizations. They accuse them of harboring these organizations and place sanctions on them. The same year, U.S. investigators linked two Sudan's diplomats to a terrorist cell planning to bomb the UN building in New York in 1998. So, what is the proof? At this point, I want to say, what is the proof? Now, let's get into this video.
Insurance fraud. 9/11 started as commercial insurance fraud. It was known in 1988 that the Twin Towers were condemned because they didn't want to pay the $2 billion to dismantle the buildings the hard way. Controlled demolitions was forbidden. When that was briefed to Dick Cheney as Secretary of Defense, I believe he said, praise the Lord, this is going to be a terrorism event that will give us a reason for invading Iraq and Afghanistan.
Now, more on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago, I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. It seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash, and we know that behind that there's an empty piece of what was a very familiar New York skyline, a symbol of the financial prosperity of this city, but completely disappeared now, and New York is still unable to take on board what has happened to them today.
Presumably there were very few people in the Salomon building when it collapsed. I mean, there were, I suppose, fears of possible further collapses around the area.
That's what you would hope, because they don't really know where to turn, and that's the very sad thing. I think there's going to be a lot of very, very traumatized people. That has hit them very, very hard.
I think many of us, when we heard the news, perhaps on the radio earlier today, were completely flabbergasted by it and just couldn't comprehend it. I mean, it almost sounded too far-fetched. I was wondering what it felt like for you being in Manhattan. Well, unfortunately, I think we've lost the line with Jane Stanley in Manhattan.
Now, here we're going to show you a videotape of the collapse itself. Now we go to videotape of the collapse of this building. Amazing, incredible, pick your word.
Too far-fetched.
For the third time today, it's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before. A building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. I mean, the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
We have just watched a video where a lot of Americans are saying 9/11 was an inside job. It means they were the orchestrator of 9/11. So the Middle East has been paying for something that was caused by the US. If that happens to be true, the Middle East should go and seek reparations from America. Libya, Sudan, Somalia, they all deserve reparations from America. And I'll go further as saying any country that has been affected by terrorism needs reparations from America and its allies. Because if you cause something and blame it on me and destroy my generation, you need to pay me for that. Development of planet Earth has gone back decades because of all these wars around, all these bombings from left, right, center. And don't get it wrong, I know people get radicalized by all this ideology. But what do you think? What do you think when the country is telling you that, no, I don't do this, and you keep on saying, no, you do this, and you sanction the country? What do you want the youths of those countries to do? They will start seeking for other things because happy people who are comfortable, don't seek violence, except in a certain country we all know. But when our bellies are full, we have no problem. Nothing bothers us about our country. In short, the government can carry it and go. Nothing bothers us about our country. But when our bellies are not full, then we go to the street. So you create a scenario by putting sanctions on countries. And back then your sanctions were effective because they affected all these countries. And then we're hearing now that the reasons why all the sanctions and all these destabilizations have occurred, it's actually because of you. You create a scenario and then you attack other people. Let's listen to all this comedian. This guy who says he was actually in short, just watch this.
Who do you think did 9/11? So why did America do it?
To finish the Bush one stop.
Where'd you read this?
I started 11 years ago.
Where in the military were you?
Here we go.
Yeah, I want the full conspiracy. Let's go.
I was at the VA a year and a half after an operation that we went to. Breaking news, the operation that we did a year and a half ago. Popped up on the news. I immediately went to go check and I'm like, is this modern? And they said, yes. And I said, no, it's not. I need to go talk to mental health because I was there when that happened.
Oh, so you go and say like, what's on the news isn't true.
Yes.
Am I going crazy?
Yeah, and it broke my whole reality.
He cannot stop drinking. I think he's telling the truth. Why did you just drag us into this nightmare? Is the Bermuda Triangle real?
Yes, but because of a series of wins, not anything else.
Nerd alert.
You see the guy? He said a situation that had passed. He later saw that situation on the news as breaking news. It means the media in America fabricates stories, take stories to mix and blend their agenda and pumping out of people and make people believe that. Do you know that Gaddafi actually accepted that the US can come and take everything that they want to take, but they should allow his country? Do you know that? But no, it wasn't for the benefit of the US. Now Libya is torn apart. Do you know that in Syria, all these countries, they begged that, okay, you say we have mass weapons, come and see. But the pride, the disgust of the Americans couldn't handle it. They wanted regime change. They wanted to suffer those people. And guess what? Thousands, millions of people died. Which war were you people fighting? I am opposed to this because as an African, this war has affected my continent. When your neighbors are fighting, please don't think that the fire is not going to come to your house. The fire came to Africa and it has burnt and taken lives. We know about the Boko Haram taking children. Terrorism acts have been floating here, right, center. That is not African. That is not our culture. Go back and look at when the first terrorism act took place in Africa. You will see and go back and see where it's leading from. The West funds all these groups, leave them hanging, and then they have to pick up ideologies because they don't like what the West did to them. And then the West later on labels them. It means you light the matches, you keep on pouring petrol and kerosene and everything, make it big. And now we're living in a world where people have seen so much hate perpetrated by you. The world has seen so much violence, so much unaliving done by the West in a way that I think some people no longer value human life, especially in this Western country. Because how will you account for the murder of billions of Arabs in the Middle East under the pretext of weapons of mass destruction? Allegedly, we haven't seen the weapons of mass destruction. When are you going to apologize? When are you going to pay back? When are you going to get out of the country? How do you support things that the rest of the world has seen that no, it doesn't make sense? See, the West has given us so much violence that it still shocks me to see that some people know or value human life. Look at all the movies that we have been consuming. The Muslims are always the bad guys. The Chinese were always disposable. They were always fake. They were always the first to be killed. The black person was always used as human shield to be killed, always the first person to be killed. The Russians were always made as spies. And even though the Americans were the bad, but no, they were always the hero. They were always the good guys. That's propaganda. That's tuning your mind. And you need to unravel your mind to be able to see the world for a beautiful planet that the good Lord created. You need to remove it to see that, we love each other. These people are just making us fight because they want us to buy weapons. I've been going round and round. Let's come back to Sudan. Finally, it was Sudan's turn. Military change, it did happen. The militia group and the RSF group both helping dethroning or removing their dictator, president. Now there was a problem of who is going to be in power, or how are they going to assimilate the RSF group into the military. Conflict arise. Now the children of Sudan have been killed. Girls have been raped. I watched a video of, I don't think they were even up to 13 years old, that they joined the military to be able to protect themselves. 13 years old, I had to cut that part because I practically was crying. Yeah, so children doing self-defense to protect themselves. Why this time the resources are being taken by the West? Well, it's been taken by the ally of the West, so the West and its allies, the UAE. The UAE has come out to reject it. Oh, they didn't do this, they didn't do this. But I want you to watch this video of one of the government, actually it's the government, one of the government seeing the weapons the UAE in their country. It means the UAE is funding these groups, the RFS group with weapons. They're even sending people into fights because they said they saw passports. People were coming in from Chad. This is going to be a series because now I'm just giving the intro for us to see the way the West makes situations that leads to the downfall of countries, especially in Africa. And still, we don't see it. This environment for even the UAE to come and steal gold was created by the West. And now the UAE is stealing the gold. So, my question, why are you still taking that trip to the UAE? Why are you still visiting Dubai? Why? Just tell me why. Are the kids of Sudan, their tears not enough? I see people, because of what's going on in that, people are no longer using things that are produced by those countries or anybody supporting those countries. Why are we in Africa not taking the same steps? See, if we are unable to raise our voices, nobody will raise our voices for us. We have to be able to talk for ourselves. Well, watch me in the next episode as I break down what led up to this crisis and to this starvation and to this hunger. Thank you and have yourself a great day.